Hi everyone, this is the channel about engines. So today we're going to repair another V-engine. It's a V8, 2 turbochargers for now. I don't know yet if it's a 422 or a 442. And I also don't know the piston size yet. I'll check the plate and take it apart later, but everything will be clear. So my task now is to remove the gearbox. Let's go. Now I'm draining the oil. Let's check the amount of oil and its condition. So, we can see that about 25 liters have drained, so the volume is normal. The oil seems to be free of metal shavings, there aren't any visible metal particles, no metallic sheen, and there doesn't seem to be any motion either. The oil volume is normal. Well, that's it, my engine is ready for disassembly. I'll be taking it apart and showing the condition of the cylinder liners, rings, piston bearings and so on. We'll see what condition it's in. Basically, I'll be drawing some conclusions. First, I'll remove everything like the accessories on top, the clutch, the manifolds and all the pipes. Alright, so I've removed the clutch. Let's check the condition of the flywheel. There's a lot of wear here and you can see a chipped piece. So the flywheel definitely needs to be replaced, that's for sure. And there are some pieces lying in the starter's compartment. It's not clear what that is. So the flywheel definitely needs to be replaced. The bearing needs to be replaced and the disc as well. The condition has improved slightly, but if we're replacing it, we should replace everything since it's nearly worn to the indicator, including the clutch cover. Apparently the clutch cover and the disc were replaced separately at some point, but the flywheel wasn't replaced. So now we need to replace the flywheel, clutch cover and disc. Next, we remove the power steering pump. So the tabs on the pump are worn out, so we'll have to think about it. Maybe it needs to be replaced. The washer is worn out and needs replacement. Alright, let's check the turbo. And we see that everything is covered in dust there. So it's possible that this engine was taking in dust. Dust was getting in past the air filter. Here you can see how much dust there is. So I removed the intake manifolds. And here's what I see there. Let's take it off. But it's very clear that there's dust in the intake manifold. You can see it clearly. That's how it is. I also just checked this upper pipe that goes to the turbo. So I looked inside it too. There's something really terrible going on in there. There's a layer of dirt like this. It's not just a coating. There are literally millimeters, half a centimeter of dirt on the walls. It feels like they were driving without an air filter at all. And here, if you look at the manifolds themselves, you can also see that all the walls are covered in dust and sand. This means that somewhere air and dust are getting in past the air filter. So either there's a torn hose somewhere. All right, I'll keep disassembling. Now I'm removing everything here in front of the filter. This bracket right here, and I'm removing the fuel pump. All right, so I removed the heads. Let's take a look. First, let's check for wear. So, the wear is pretty significant. My fingernail catches on it. First. Second, we can see that the piston in the 8th cylinder is not original. It has a different combustion chamber. And not only that, it's also installed upside down. Okay, let's keep looking. The piston diameter is 128 millimeters. Let's see, the block is a 442 engine. So this is a 442 engine, twin turbos. Piston diameter is 128, diameter in millimeters. All right, next let's check the condition of the cylinder heads. Well, just visually from the outside, the cylinder heads are in very good condition. They haven't corroded. The sediment bowl isn't corroded. So everything is in excellent condition. As I understand it, this side was opened up. The 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th cylinders, they were opened. The cylinder heads here are cleaner and the gaskets are newer. Now, let's look at the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The cylinder heads here also in good condition. I couldn't unscrew the injector in the fourth cylinder. The nut got crushed like this. So I unscrewed everything except the fourth one. But I'll keep trying, I'll soak it with something, tap it, try again. If it doesn't work, well, I don't know, I'll see what to do next depending on the situation. The compressor obviously needs an overhaul too. There's wear on it as well. Next, I set the marks on the fuel pump. I aligned the movable and fixed marks. I immediately put a mark on the flywheel. Just like that. You could see in the video that the engine was washed before disassembly. The engine was washed at a car wash with high pressure water. On the outside, it seemed clean, right? Now, let me show you. There were filters here, there were cylinder heads here, there were manifolds here, there were turbochargers here. Everything was installed here like this, right? Now I'm showing the condition of the washed engine. The engine after washing. That is, even if you really try, there's just no way a stream of water will reach here. And what kind of chemicals can remove this layer? This centimeter thick layer? What chemicals? Known. I'll show you how thick the dirt layer is here. Look, I sank the whole knife blade in. All of this is dirt, solid dirt. See, what kind of car wash could clean this? There should be a bolt somewhere around here. It's just not there. Why? Because this whole area, it's all dirt, see. So this engine is mounted at the back of the bus. All the turbulence, all the dust, it all goes there. It's been on this bus for, I don't know, about 10 years. Feels like it hasn't been removed for a long time, alright? Now I'm taking off the pump. I'm removing these fittings and turning the engine over. Also, I want to say that when I'm removing some of these bolts, it feels like I'm unscrewing them for the first time. The metal is shiny, like it just came from the factory. So I would be surprised if I take the engine apart now and find, for example, that the bearings are still the original ones from the factory. There should be a date stamped on them. I think this engine is from the early 90s. That's my guess. So it would be interesting if the bearing has a date stamped on it. Like, for example, 1991. This means the engine has never been rebuilt and still uses its original bearings. Or, for example, the camshaft bushings. Yes, maybe they also have the year of manufacture marked on them. It's possible that this engine has never even been fully overhauled or rebuilt. For example, if a piston was replaced there at some point. If the piston was replaced and the oil pan opened, it's sealed here with gasket maker. They may have also replaced the connecting rod bearings. We are specifically interested in the main bearings and specifically the camshaft bushing. It will be interesting if this engine is still from the 1990s. I'm the first person to do a major overhaul on it. So I removed the fuel pump, and under the fuel pump there was a pile of dirt like this. The aluminum has oxidized. You can see it here. I'll show you now. Even the pump housing itself has been corroded. I don't know, I'll have to see how serious it is. I just want to show you how thick the layer of dirt is under this pump. Everything is just overgrown. There's even a leaf here, an autumn leaf, so it's all completely overgrown. I don't know the owner, the new owner of this bus, and he doesn't know either, like when the last repair was, or what's going on with the engine at all. But judging by this, I don't know, it's been what, more than a decade, probably 10 or 15 years. All right, now I'll show you the pump. Here are the plugs. They really get hammered in the housing. They should be recessed into the housing. Next, we look, the closer they are to this side, the more they stick out. And here we can see that the plug is sticking out by about 5 millimeters. That's how much more of the housing there should be. All of this has been eaten away by corrosion. So there's dirt here, water constantly gets in, wet dirt, and that's how this kind of corrosion happens here. Review and clean everything first. In the worst case, the very worst case scenario is that we may need to replace the pump housing. Next, let's check the flywheel. There, I took it off and had a look. Here's my mark. And now I cleaned the scale. And we see that it's like this 5, 10, 15, well, somewhere around 12 degrees. So these pieces that were lying by the starter, here they are. These are pieces of this rim here. I turn the engine over, remove the oil pan and take out the pistons. The heat exchanger is not the original one. It's from Tractech, the company. They installed a new one, maybe because the old one was corroded or maybe it broke. The heat exchanger is in good condition. So now I'm looking at the bearings and I see that they all come with thrust washers. Not just this last one, the fifth one, but all 5 of them have thrust washers. I've been working for a while, but I've never seen anything like this. So now I'll remove a few main bearing caps and take a look. Let's see what this is. And at the same time, I'll check their condition. As mentioned, I'm interested in the bearings manufacturing date. After loosening all the main and connecting rod bearings, the crankshaft was very hard to turn. Here, these bearing shells all come with thrust washers. I haven't seen bearing shells like this specifically on 442 engines. Interesting, in over 20 years of working, this is the first time I've seen something like this. That's something. Look. All right, we can see what a deep scratch this is. All right, now let's check the size. All right, I can see it's standard size. Here, I think it even shows the year of manufacture, 1997. All right, it's hard to see it, so I'll record it on my phone. The camera isn't focusing. Well, as far as I can see here, it says 1997. 442, here's the emblem. Yes, the Mercedes one. So here's the Mercedes emblem. This is still the original bearing shell. So it turns out for sure the bearing shells haven't been changed yet. These are still the factory bearing shells from 1997. Well, I thought it was the early 1990s, but it turns out it's already the late 1990s. It's hard to guess how many miles this engine has put on in 23 years. If it's a bus, it's hard to guess. But I'll say that these bearing shells have probably gone at least 1 million miles at the very least. Or maybe if you think about it, it's probably around 2 million. Well, our bus runs about 500 kilometers a day on average. In theory, the bus doesn't stop. 2 drivers work shifts. That's 15,000 kilometers a month. Roughly speaking, 200,000 a year. 2 sedvemi. Over 10 years, that's 2 million. 2 million. 20 years would be 4 million. But it hasn't reached that. Still, these bearings have at least gone through 2 million. That's certain. The most interesting thing is that I didn't see them as Mercedes bearings. I thought they were new, as if they'd already been replaced. That's the condition they're in. Incredible. All right, let's keep taking it apart and see. Well, you can see that this block hasn't been machined. All the original numbers are there. The 4th journal, the block number. All right, and here we have the main bearing shell. The 5th main bearing. That is, there's just a little bit of indicator showing on it. Well, this is the clutch on this side. Let's remove the bearing shell and check it. Music is playing. All right, well, you can see the Mercedes logo here too. The catalog number. Standard. And it's also from 97. Well, that's right. The bearing shells are still original. Factory ones installed at the plant. Even by the most modest estimates, they've gone 2 million. All right, I won't remove the other main bearings for now. Now, I'll take out the tower. Let's check the connecting rod bearings. Music is playing. Well, I can say that they're original too. Genuine ones. There's the original Mercedes logo right here. I'm not sure if it'll show on camera, so I'll record it on my phone and add that footage. Here's the Mercedes logo, catalog number, standard. And here it also says 97. These are also original bearing shells. Alright, let's check the pistons. The Mercedes emblem. So it's an original piston. Well, there are no scratches, nothing major. Visually everything looks good so far. But, of course, we need to measure everything now. Gotta check it all, clean it up. Music is playing. There are scratches on this side too. And there's another piston in about the same condition. Here, the piston crown is all scratched up here too. I also measured the piston rings and the gap is more than 5 mm. The weather is, I don't know, 6 or 7 mm. Because there's such a ridge that the piston couldn't pass through. So the top ring was getting jammed. So one of the sleeves wouldn't come out. I just couldn't get it out because there's a lot of wear here and the ring just gets stuck on this one edge. So I couldn't knock the piston out. That's why I had to knock it out together with the sleeve. And I measured the gaps on it. So here the gap is about 3 or 4 millimeters. I think that's the oil control ring. And you can see that all the edges are already worn down. It's almost smooth. All right, the compression ring. Well, I mean, even if I measure it with the feeler gauge, it's 5 millimeters, 4.5 millimeters. That's the gap in the compression ring. And that's even considering I'm measuring in a spot where there's no wear from the rings. Okay, it's not exactly accurate for me to measure here, but something like this, I take it out and let's see. 6 mm. That's the gap in the compression ring. So this is all dust. The dust gives these results, like sandpaper. It wears down the rings. It acts like sandpaper. The ridge, I don't know if you can see it or not. Well, I think you can see it here. So it's literally, well, probably a millimeter, not more. And there are scratches there, you can see it's all scored up and the piston has the same kind of scoring. These sleeves, if you look, they're not in the best condition either. I'll suggest to the owner to install a new piston kit. I don't know, we'll think about it. But first we need to measure everything and clean it. Alright, next I'm removing the non-original piston, the different one. Honestly, the feeling about this engine is kind of mixed. When I first saw it from the outside, I thought, well, it's just some kind of scrap. After I took it apart, some of the parts inside were just in perfect condition. I just don't understand how they could have run so much and still be in that state. But judging by the cylinder liners, they've definitely seen a lot of use. So let's take a look at the bearing. So the most interesting thing is that they replaced the piston here, but left the same bearings. They just swapped their position. This one should be in the connecting rod, but it's in the cap. Continuing on, so what do we have here? We have a tube that fell out here. I see why it fell out. The piston is installed the wrong way. So it's installed like this. Accordingly, the tube, the oil squirter, is at the bottom. That's how it's positioned. And accordingly, the piston should have been installed like this. This notch here is specifically for the oil squirter. The piston was installed like this. It broke this tube. And accordingly, the piston isn't in the best condition either. Yeah, not engine, just a bunch of mysteries. Alright, I'm taking out the crankshaft, the camshaft, checking the bushings, the seals, and so on. So, the main bearings definitely took more damage, right? I mean, there are these kinds of scratches here. It feels like there was oil starvation. Yeah. And this scratch here, something scraped it. Some kind of metal shavings got in. Well, this one is better, yeah. Well, the first and second are better. This one has the worst scoring. Let's look at the crankshaft. You can't feel it by touch, of course. I'll measure everything and check it. Visually, the crankshaft looks perfect. This is a Mercedes. It's from 1997. Worked for 23 years, yeah? I'm still taking out the original bearings. Wow, they're in perfect condition. Well, of course I'll measure it, but you can see right away if there's any wear. It's obvious. The owner can't tell me the mileage because he doesn't know himself. He recently bought this bus. Well, I think this engine has done about 2 million. Because this bus, over 23 years, has done about 2 million kilometers. Its condition really surprises me, of course. And here, this piston isn't sitting right anymore. Yeah, it looks like they did something to it before selling. Alright, I'm taking out the crankshaft now. Basically, there's no way to know the full history of this engine now. According to the owner, he doesn't know if it was repaired or not. With my experience, as much as I have, I can say that the bearings haven't been changed. The bearings are still factory ones, so this engine hasn't been worked on yet. This is its first major overhaul. So, visually, the condition of the camshaft is just perfect. Sure, I'll measure the cam lobe height, but visually it's just in perfect condition. I'm checking to see if there's any brand logo on it, to see if it's branded. No. Alright, let's check the lifters. No issues with the lifters. The lifters won't need to be replaced. Alright. Now I'll knock out one camshaft bushing. Let's see what's written on the bushing. There you go, 1998 to January 1998. Boy. So the engine definitely hasn't been worked on at all. Boy. The bushings, of course, are already starting to crumble. Boy, you can see it right there. The bushings need to be replaced, that's for sure. So I also want to record these dates on my phone. Here we have the camshaft bushing. You can see it's from 1998. So it's still the original one from the factory. And it's already in this condition. Here you can see it's just starting to crumble. Next is the bushing. Now let's check the main bearing shell. Standard Mercedes emblem. So that means it's 100% certain that this is an original insert. And let's see, it's the year 98. The year 98. Next, let's look at the connecting rod bearing. The year 98. So this happens quite often with these engines. Coolant leaks into one spot and this kind of corrosion appears. So it's present on all the sleeves. Let's look at the sleeve where the non-original piston was installed. I mean, not this kind. You can see it's not as rusty. Its condition is better. And here we see the BF mark. We see the BF mark. That means these are Turkish parts. The seal grooves is in perfect condition, in very good shape. I actually like it compared to my previous engine. For those who haven't seen how I struggled with it. So, the rubber seals are in quite good condition. You can also see that the rubber seals have stuck so much that they've practically grown into place. But you can still clearly feel that they're not hardened or deteriorated. It's actually in good shape, even though it's already covered with all this scale, rust, and deposits. The rubber seals are good. So let's sum it up. So the condition of the engine is pretty good. The only problem with it is, well, if you don't count at this fourth piston, it's unclear who did what with it, why it was replaced, why it's different, and why it's installed incorrectly. I don't know. Those are the questions. So if we don't take these recent repairs into account, the overall condition of the engine is actually pretty good. Its only real problem is, of course, dust. The dust that was getting into the intake manifold. So somewhere we'll have to look for it. Maybe there's a torn hose somewhere or something else we'll have to check. That's the problem with it. Because of this, all the cylinder liners and rings got worn out, and the pistons, of course, were damaged as well. Well, the dust and metal shavings are circulating through the whole oil system, so the bearings are suffering, basically. Everything is affected. For its age, though, it's in very good condition. So what will be done? Well, naturally one injector will be replaced. Here we can see that the piston was installed incorrectly and the oil nozzle was broken. That's fine, just one injector will be replaced. Let's move on. Naturally, the camshaft bushings will be replaced. The lifters will stay the same. The lifters are in good condition. You could say they're perfect. The lifters will stay the same. Moving on. I will talk to the owner about getting a new piston assembly. I will recommend to him that a new piston assembly should be installed, because there's no point in replacing 3 pistons and leaving the rest old. So basically we'll need to replace 8 liners, all the rings, all the seals, and at least 3 pistons. But I don't see any point in leaving the other 5 old pistons. The crankshaft looks to be in excellent condition. Of course, there will be another measurement. I'll measure it. Yes, even I can already see from experience that it's in perfect condition. The only thing is, of course, this ring needs to be replaced for the oil seal. You don't even need to clamp it in the machine for polishing. It's already in perfect condition. Just wash it, wipe it, blow it out, that's all. I don't expect any issues with the camshafts. Its condition is perfect. The bushings will also be replaced. Everything. I will recommend a new piston assembly. These pistons here are in good condition. They can be kept as spares, maybe used somewhere else later. Next, of course, all the bearings will be new. I'll clean and check the block itself, and I'll check all the connecting rods. New bearings, of course, main and rod bearings, new piston assembly. And next, the cylinder heads. I'll disassemble the heads and inspect them. That's a given. Maybe lapping the valves, maybe cutting the valve seats, maybe replacing the guides. Valve stem seals, obviously. I'll probably send them for surface grinding on a surface grinder. Although that's not certain, I'll have to see. The injectors, of course, need repair. So I think the nozzle will have to be replaced. Well, I'll clean them and send them for testing. Most likely, the nozzles will be replaced. Next, about the fuel pump. There are definitely some questions about the fuel pump. Here's the corrosion on it. Look at how it got eaten away here. The plugs are really sticking out. Well, maybe it's nothing serious. Maybe I can fix it. I can just seal all this with cold welding. We'll see. I think the pump should also go on a test stand, at least to check it. Most will have to replace the plunger and barrel assemblies, valves, and so on. Alright, next. The clutch needs to be replaced. The disc, the pressure plate, the flywheel. All of that needs to be replaced. The turbochargers too, although I haven't looked at them yet. That's how it is. See, there's some play. Yeah, see all that dust? That's what I meant. You can see the impellers are loose. A decision will be made about it. But for now, I don't know what we'll do with them. Maybe we'll get new ones. Maybe both turbochargers will be new. That would be the ideal option, of course. So what else? Naturally, everything needs to be cleaned. I might overhaul the pump and the compressor too. There will be compressor repairs. That's how it turns out. That's the scope of work. Basically, I've said everything. I've checked everything. So that's preliminary. I'll begin assembly by installing the oil nozzle. If you watch the teardown, 8 cylinders piston was incorrectly installed facing the wrong way, which broke this tube. Now I'm installing a different oil nozzle. Next, I'm installing the heat exchanger. So the heat exchanger was prepared. I washed and cleaned it. I removed the radiator. I washed and blew everything inside. I take a new gasket and apply some sealant. Sealant Corteco, sealant 10. The heat exchanger is in place. Next, I'll be replacing the camshaft bushings. Alright, the bushing is in place. Let's take a look. Here's one oil channel. Oil comes through it from the crankshaft directly to lubricate the camshaft. And here's our second oil channel. This one goes from the camshaft to lubricate the fuel pump. We can see that both channels are aligned. Everything is fine. And so on. Alright, we can see that the camshaft bushings are in place. And now let's check the oil channels. Once again, we can see they're there. They're there. Yes, they're there. They're there. I've checked the first bushing. I'm turning the engine, packing pistons, and installing sleeves. So, we've got a knurled piston kit. It's a good brand. I've installed it before and already checked this piston. The sizes are correct, it's the right piston set. So, the kit includes the wrist pin, circlips, piston rings, and of course the piston and liner. Now I'm going to mark each liner. This is my first liner. And this will be my first piston. That's so I don't mix up which piston goes with which liner. So this is how it's packaged. The piston is already inserted into the liner, already with the piston rings on. So we see the piston. The piston rings are already installed on it and the piston pin is inserted. I'm noting right away that this will be the second liner, the second piston. Let's check the weight of the pistons now. I checked the weight of the pistons. All the pistons with the pin rings and clips weigh 3,510 grams. So everything is fine. So for the cylinder liner seals, as usual, I'm using Erling. So I'm measuring all the adjustment rings, but I have standard ones. They should all be 0.15, but I'll check them anyway. I'll measure all the sleeves and flange height. See, the thickness of the ring is 0.15. So all my rings are 0.15. I'm measuring the flange height. We can see the height of the flange is 0.91. But it can vary from 0.90 to 0.92. Well, now I'll measure all the cylinder liners. Here we see this one is 0.9. I've checked all the cylinder liners at 0.91 or 0.92. So now I'm installing the adjustment rings without the O-rings. I'm installing the cylinder liners without the O-rings and then measuring their protrusion. I've installed all the cylinder liners. I'm clamping the cylinder liner down with bolts. Now I'm measuring the liner protrusion, and as you can see, the block is at 0. And the needle moved to 8, about 7 to 8 hundredths. 9 is the maximum protrusion. That's how I check at 3 points. 0.8. Let's see. 0.8, 0.8. Normal range is 0.03 to 0.09. I've checked these two cylinder liners and I'm reviewing the next one. Null. 0.8. Let's keep looking. 0. Well, here it shows 7. 0.7. Take the protrusion of the sleeves. All the sleeves protrude about the same. That's about 0.07 to 0.08 millimeters. That's very good. I'm removing the sleeves, adding the rubber rings, and starting installation. The seating areas for the rubber rings in this block are in very good condition. I'll just coat the rubber rings with a special lubricant, a special gel. I'm also coating the sleeve with this paste. All the seating areas are coated. All the sleeves are coated. I'm installing them. Alright, the sleeves are in place. Now I'm turning the block over again and we'll install the crankshaft. I already prepared the crankshaft. I've already filmed the footage. Now I'll insert the footage of preparing the crankshaft. I clamped the crankshaft in the machine. I removed the counterweights and polished it a bit. After polishing, I'll check the size. So I take the micrometer, I checked it against the 0 standard. We see 0. The fifth main journal, 103.99. The fourth main journal, 103.99. The third main journal, 103.98 and a half. The second main journal, 103.99. The first main journal, 103.98. Also removed the ring and the oil seal. The ring will be new. I'm also taking the micrometer. I'm checking it against the standard. We see it's at 0, the fourth rod journal, 9.99. I'm showing the camera the most worn spot, which is usually up and down. I'm checking in 2 more planes. The third rod journal, 89.99. The second rod journal, 89.98. The first rod journal, 89.90. Well, 9, almost 9. The crankshaft is in perfect shape. I turned it a little. I measured it. It's right on spec. Changed the thrust washer, the oil seal. What else did I do? And I blew it out. Blew out all the passages. So the crankshaft is ready. Next, before installing it in the block, I need to install the lifters first because it will be inconvenient later. I coated the lifter holes with oil and now I'm installing them. The cover is also all washed and cleaned. Also, I want to show that during disassembly, I showed the bearings are in place. That is all the bearings, not just this thrust one on the fifth main, but all the main bearings that are in the caps. They had locating tabs like this. I'll also show here, it says 170298. So as I said, this is a 1998 engine, and here are the rod bearings as well. We just checked and found out that these kinds of bearings are no longer produced. Let me show you. After tightening, the marks are across. After a 90-degree turn, they're along. Alright, so the side tie bolts are tightened as well, and the main bolts are tightened too. That's it. The crankshaft is fully tightened and turns like this. So it has some end play, and this is how it turns. It turns easily. So I apply some force to it, and then it keeps moving on its own. That is perfect, just as it should be. It feels so smooth, like it's riding on an oil film. The oil film is holding it from all sides. Nowhere is it tight, pinched, or loose. You can feel that the whole space is filled with oil. You can feel it all with your hand. Overall, it's excellent. Next, my task is to install the pistons onto the connecting rods and then put the pistons in place. First, I need to put the camshaft back in place. I also measured the camshaft. The height of the lobes is perfect. The bearing journals are also perfect. Here, I've lubricated the bushings with oil. So we can see that the timing marks are aligned. Here's the mark on the crankshaft, and here are the two marks on the camshaft. And this is how they rotate together. So as we can see, the crankshaft made one full turn, and the camshaft made half a turn. Again, we can see that the crankshaft made another full turn, and the camshaft made another half turn. The timing marks have lined up again. That's it, the timing marks are in place. Now I'll move on to the pistons. So I'll continue the assembly. Yesterday I went and picked up the connecting rods. I sent the connecting rods to have the bushings replaced. So they changed the bushings and machined them on a lathe. They fitted them. So now this is how it looks. So now I'm going to install the pistons. Here, I put the pistons in a box so that dust and dirt wouldn't get on them. Also, I picked up the fuel pump yesterday. I got the injectors back from repair. The nozzles on the injectors were replaced. Here, you can see the old nozzles. And these spacers were also replaced. The intermediate rail, that is, it was replaced because of wear. Here, if you look closely, you can see the wear where the needle rests. And it's already quite a bit of wear. Next, all the injectors here. I won't name the company. Maybe I'll make a deal with them about advertising. But I really like the quality of their work. I mean, even the finished injectors are packed in bags, right? So that no dirt gets in, nothing. I think this says a lot about their standards. Often, they just bring them from the fuel guy. There, it's not just that it's not sealed, it's just all covered in oil, dirt, and some kind of dust. So, that's the level, yeah. Well, I can say the same about repairing the fuel pump. So, if you remember, there was a corrosion here, right? On the housing. Because of that, I was a bit worried, a bit concerned. But they said it's nothing serious. They just hammered the plugs in a bit deeper. Apparently, they also glued them in with something. They said there won't be any problems here. They cleaned it all up too. It's really well cleaned. I mean, at least I like how it looks. So the plunger and barrel assemblies were replaced. The delivery valves were replaced. All 8 of them as well. Even. And the springs were replaced too. Well, of course, they also replaced various gaskets, a regulator kit, and all sorts of sealing rings. We can see that everything is marked with paint. So I also like the condition of the pump. We'll see how it performs in operation. Let's see how it does. For now, I'm removing the fuel one, the fuel equipment, and I'm working on the pistons. I'm installing pistons on the shooter. I'm installing pistons in the block. taking a piston. I'm lubricating it with oil lubricating it. I'm lubricating the connecting rod bushing with oil. Just like this. I insert it by hand. Then I put the ring back in place. I'm checking the second ring. That's it, one is ready. Then we assemble the rest. The second one is ready. So, the pistons are already installed on the connecting rods. Next, I install the bearings. I use MIB as usual spotter because it's a turbocharged engine. These need to be spotter bearings. We can see that one bearing is a regular one and one bearing has the inscription spotter standard. So the bearing with the spotter inscription, we install the bearing with the spotter inscription into the connecting rod, and the regular bearing without the inscription goes into the connecting rod cap. The bearings are installed. So what else? I want to say that it's absolutely necessary to measure the bolts as usual, but I've already measured all of them. So as we can see, the height is 68.1 and you can use bolts up to about 68.5. An important point, specifically the connecting rod bolts. That's it. The pistons are ready for installation. I'm starting. I've tightened the connecting rod bolts, turned them 90 degrees from crosswise marks to lengthwise marks. Next, I'm installing the counterweights. The counterweights are also washed, cleaned and prepared. I'll be installing the bolts and I'll apply thread locker to the threads. Alright, I've installed and tightened the counterweights, also turned them 90 degrees with the marks lengthwise. The crankshaft is fully installed with all main bearings, connecting rods, counterweights tightened and end-plate set. That means it turns easily, moves smoothly, everything is good. Now I'm closing the rear cover, the front cover, and I plan to close the oil pan today as well. So, let me tell you a bit about the covers and what was done. So, the front cover was simply washed and cleaned. I chased the threads, used a tap to clean out the dirt and replaced the oil seal. The oil seal is good, without a spring, made of acrylic rubber. The front cover is done and ready for installation. Now, about the rear cover with the casing. The first one was all washed, cleaned, and I chased the threads. Here we can see that the crack has started and sealant is coming out. The crack began when it was tightened. Last time the oil pan was removed, a lot of sealant was used, and tightening it anymore would have broken off the front part. But it's holding on firmly. I ran a tap through it and removed all the dirt and old sealant from there. That means good original factory studs were installed, Mercedes one. There were some strange bolts here before. It's not clear what was done. I installed good studs and nuts, good ones. So it's ready, the mounting spot for the starter. Everything was corroded, so I cleaned it. Next, I also replaced the seal with the same acrylic rubber one without a spring, which, well, I basically only use these. They're the best seals. The compressor was overhauled. Here are the old parts. The cylinder was completely replaced, as well as the piston rings and pin. The bearing was also replaced. The crankshaft bushing and bearings were replaced. This is the condition of the bearing that was on the connecting rod. The valves were replaced. Besides, the valves were installed incorrectly. Apparently, someone had opened it before. Here we can see the plate. The valve is broken, the exhaust one. There should be a washer here, but it was missing, and the plate was just tightened too much. So it was done incorrectly, and that's why it broke. I also redid two studs. So I made two studs out of good German bolts, tightened everything up. The cylinder head is also ready, but I'm not installing it yet because it would get in the way. I'll put the head on when everything is in place. I also cleaned out all the threads on this side. There was a lot of dirt here too, a lot of old sealant and so on. That's it. I briefly explained what was done with the covers and the housings. And now I'm starting the installation. Before installing the housing, we check the marks again. That is, we look to see that we have a dot on the crankshaft and two marks on the camshaft. We can see that they are aligned. We install the gaskets. Next, I install the front cover. I also apply sealant and put it in place. The oil seal is installed using the guide that comes with the seal. I also want to remind you that the surface where the seal sits should not be lubricated with oil. That means you should never lubricate these seals with oil. Next, I will immediately install the flywheel, but I want to mention that lately, for some reason, flywheels have been coming without this truss washer. So you need to be careful, because you might take it out of the box and install it right away, but the washer isn't there. Now, I'm installing the washer first. Alright, the washer is in place, it's already cooled down, and the heat immediately transferred to the flywheel. So I also installed a new bearing. I installed the bearing right away, because lately, for some reason, flywheels have often been defective. I mean, this bearing here just slips right through. So as soon as they brought it in off camera, I immediately installed a new bearing to check. Alright, that's it, my flywheel is ready, the bearing is installed, and the washer for the oil seal is in place. Okay, I'm checking right away for the presence of marks on the scale, because I once had a case where the flywheel didn't have a scale. Now I'm going to install the clutch, and I want to wipe the flywheel with solvent because there's a bit of grease on it. I'll remove it, it's better without it. Alright, so next I'm installing the clutch. To be continued. Before installing the disc, I'm checking its runout. We can see there's a little bit, but it's within the acceptable range. I just remembered I have an input shaft. It's new. So usually I use a mandrel for installation, but to make it more precise, I'll use the input shaft. Alright, that's it. The clutch is in place, the clutch is installed. Next, I'll be closing the oil pan. Right now I need to install the oil pump. The oil pan is already prepared. Everything is washed, wiped, blown out and degreased. But first I need to take apart the oil pump. So here's my oil pump, the 43. It's also a higher capacity one. So this one is already installed. It was replaced. You can see it's from the company Paul Bernard. If you watch the video about pressure testing cylinder heads, yes, I showed cylinder heads from this same company there, and they lasted me for 2 or 3 years. So a microcrack appeared, and coolant started mixing with the oil. I had cylinder heads from this same company, BBE. I mean, I know that this company exists, but it doesn't mean much to me. I rarely see it. So now we'll take apart the pump and check its condition. So we can see that the pump is in good condition. The gears haven't even developed a mirror finish yet, which means it was replaced not too long ago. We'll leave everything as is, reinstall the cover and put in the pump, closing up. I'm installing the pump and the new pressure relief valve. Alright, so I'm installing the oil pan. I've applied sealant here, applied sealant to the engine block, taking the gasket and installing the oil pan. Alright, that's it. The oil pan is installed and tightened. This is how the engine looks now. I'm continuing the assembly. I brought the cylinder heads. I had them sent for surface grinding. This is how they look now. So, what's my next task? My task is to pressure test the cylinder heads and check the water jacket for leaks. So now I'm marking them. Well, they're already marked, but I'm using a marker now just for clarity. I'm testing the 8-cylinder head. Okay, I applied pressure for the second time. Now I'm waiting for it to drop at least down to 2. We can see that it's already dropped to 2 and we can see there are no bubbles, nothing. So everything is fine. Now I'm turning the cylinder head 90 degrees and checking again. We can see that it dropped to 2 atmospheres again. There are no bubbles, so the 8-cylinder head has been checked. We can conclude that it is airtight. That's it now. I'm on the 7th one and so on. I've checked all 8 of them. Everything is fine. They're all airtight. The water jackets on all of them are airtight. And now, so I don't have to work with these greasy cylinder heads, since they're all in antifreeze right now, greasy. And besides, I haven't washed them after grinding, so there's still some shavings, emery grit and abrasive left in there. So now I'll put them all in the washer and rinse them once more before assembly. That's it. I've washed the cylinder heads again, cleaned and prepared the valves. Now my task is to assemble the heads. Assemble the heads and lap the valves. When disassembling, I labeled each cylinder head. So here is the first head and its corresponding valves. So now what I'm going to do is check the condition of each seat, check the condition of the working surface of each valve, and make a decision. Some valves I'll just, like for example the second cylinder, right? We can see it has a good shine. Nothing else. No pitting. And here we can also see that the seat is in good condition. No pitting. Nothing is damaged. Everything is great. So I just apply the paste and lap it a little right there. For example, take the seventh head, right? The condition of the seats is good, but the condition of the valves, let's say, is not so great. You can see the pitting on the seventh valve on the exhaust one. So I'll be refacing it. No, I'll clamp it in the machine and grind the bevel a bit, and only after that will I lap it. That's my current workload. Let's get started. So, starting with the first head, I first narrow the valve seats a bit, the seating face. I've narrowed the seating face, now I'm lapping the valves. So we can see a matte ring has formed all the way around. We can see the seat also has a smooth, even matte ring all the way around. That's it, my valve is lapped. That's it, I've lapped one head. Now I'll lap all the others the same way. My valve is lapped and I'm assembling the head now. First, let's put the washers in. The small ones. Right. Next, I'm installing the valve stem seals. Alright, next I take the large washer. Alright, that's it. The first head is ready for installation. Everything is fully assembled and cleaned. The injector is cleaned out and blown through as well. That's it. The first head is ready. And so on. I've reached the seventh head. So now I'll show you what I'm going to do with this valve that has pitting. On some valves I recut the valve face like this, to restore the seating surface. Then, as usual, I grind and lap them. Now, I'm starting to install the heads first. I install the guide bushings. If you remember, during disassembly, the pistons had flat combustion chamber tops. Now, you can see that these pistons have a pin that is a deflector. So, let me explain. Those pistons are the old type, the original Mercedes ones, and they are no longer produced. This shows the cylinder head has been tightened, as all the marks align along the engine. And so on, I tighten all the other cylinder heads as well. That's it. The main work is done, the hardest part, so to speak. Now I'll be installing the injectors, the pump, adjusting the valves and so on. rocker arms are tightened. Next I'll be adjusting the valves. To adjust the valves, I need to bring the first cylinder. Here's our first cylinder to top dead center on the compression stroke, not on overlap, on the compression stroke. So for this, I turn the crankshaft clockwise until the intake valve operates, and after the intake valve operates, I find top dead center on this cylinder. You can find it using the injector. More precisely, you can find it by the piston or by the flywheel using the degree marks. Subtitles. So here we see my mark that I made for installing the pump. That is, I still need to turn it a little more. You can see that I got 0,1 top dead center. But still, I think now I'll do it like this. Now, I'll put the pulley on. I didn't put the pulley on before because I didn't have the rubber seal here for the plug. So now I'll put this plug in place and then put the pulley on. And I'll put my marks on the pulley. This isn't a necessary procedure, but that's how I do it. Sometimes it helps. Here's the plug. It looks like this. It's also a bit damaged. Corrosion has eaten away at it. Here's the new rubber seal. I'll install it, coat it with sealant, and everything will be fine. The plug is in. Now I'm installing the pulley. Alright, the pulley is tightened. Now I'll make some marks on it. So this is my 0 mark at top dead center. Then I'll also set 14 degrees. That'll be for installing the fuel injection pump. This is top dead center for cylinder 1 on the compression stroke. Now I can adjust the valves. I've got it at top dead center on the compression stroke. In order, I can adjust the first, second, fourth, fifth, and so on. That is the first, second, fourth, fifth, and so on. That's it. The first cylinder is adjusted and so on. I won't record everything. Alright, I've adjusted the valves, set the timing marks, so I'll set it to 14 degrees. Well, it's 12 or 14, give or take, depending on the play. I'll see how it goes and set it somewhere in that range from 12 to 14. So I'll also make a 14 degree mark on the pulley here. These marks aren't necessary, I'm just putting them on for clarity, you could say for the video. Well, sometimes they even help when you're over the service pit. If you need to check the timing and don't want to crawl around down in the dirty pit somewhere, you can just look here. And I'll also put a mark on the camshaft to show that this is top dead center on the compression stroke. It won't hurt to have it here either, sometimes it's actually needed. Like when you're setting the ignition or the pump. You don't need to remove the valve cover to check if it's on compression or overlap. That's it, it won't get in the way here. And if someone knows about it, even from the video, who knows, maybe the owner will need it in the future. You can just look at the camshaft. If this mark is there, it's top dead center on the first cylinder during the compression stroke, which is exactly for setting the fuel pump. Alright, that's it. I'm done with the pulley, I'm done with the valves. Next I'll be installing the injectors and then the fuel pump. Now I'm installing new washers, new injectors and new nuts. First I'm installing the washers. The injectors are in place. This is how it looks now. Alright, that's it for the injectors. Now I'm installing the fuel pump. The marks are already set up dead center, 14 degrees. Alright, now I can install the pump, meaning the engine is already set up. Here, of course, all the threads were cleaned with a tap everywhere. So all of these, well, absolutely all the threads on the entire block were cleaned with a tap. I took out a lot of dirt, sealant and so on from there. The pump is back from repair. As for the corrosion, the plugs were just hammered in a bit deeper, and basically everything turned out well here. So here it sticks out just a couple of millimeters, so there are no problems with this. Everything is fine. So next I put a new rubber gasket on with super glue and installed the big sealing ring, which is also new. What else do I want to show? Now I'll show you the condition of the gear. There isn't a single mark from the vice jaws, meaning the gear wasn't clamped in a vice. Is it possible to do it this way? Yes, it is. E. In a previous video, I showed how this gear is clamped in a vice E, and what condition the teeth are in afterward, how they get deformed, and so on. Alright. Next I aligned the mark and installed the pump. I've aligned the movable and fixed marks E. And now I'll also loosen these 3 lower bolts, just in case there's any misalignment, so I can fine-tune the ignition. As usual, I applied sealant to the mounting surface. Alright, I tightened the pump, checked that the marks haven't shifted, so loosening those bolts was unnecessary. Now I'll tighten these bolts and basically the pump is installed and everything's good. Alright, I tightened the pump and these bolts and I marked each bolt as I tightened it so I wouldn't miss anything. Next, I'll close this cover right away so nothing can fall in there. I'll seal it immediately, apply some sealant, put on the gasket and close it up. Next, I'll be installing the valve covers. I machined their surfaces because they were a bit warped, but now I've checked them on a flat plate and they're perfectly even. I take the gasket and install it. That's it. The valve covers are in place. You can see that this cover isn't original. It's the kind of cover casting used on the 402. I don't know why it's not the original one, but oh well. So, when I was taking it apart, I noticed that there's something strange going on here with the water pipes. This is how everything was done here, so it's not clear what it is, how or why. You can see that the cylinder here was replaced, and as far as I can tell, this tube was pressing against the block, and at this spot it was pressing against the head, like this. And you can see that they tried to tighten it in every possible way, wrapped it with PT5 tape, wrapped it with something else, and apparently it was still leaking here because all of this was done incorrectly. I just ran into this now, and I thought, how am I supposed to put all of this back in place? So what did I decide to do? I decided to remove the air-cooled cylinder and install a water-cooled cylinder. The supply will also go from the top through the head, and the outlet will be here. I have the original tube that should be installed here. This is how it will be installed, and the supply will go directly into the cylinder. Now I'll just modify it, and that's it. I replaced the cylinder, added water cooling for better reliability, and installed the required tube. Here, nothing is in the way. Nothing interferes, nothing needs to be cut. Next, I'll install the head, close the tube cover. Basically, I'm assembling everything up here. Now I need to unscrew this fitting and put in a plug. Now I'm installing the upper tube, leaving it unchanged, just as it was. Alright, the head is installed, the tubes are in place. Next, I'm installing the return hose. I cut pieces like this, about 25 centimeters each. I'm leaving these hoses a bit longer. They'll go right here to the return line, to the pump. And on this side, 2 plugs are installed. Alright, the return line is installed. Now I can install the air manifolds. The manifolds were cleaned inside. All the dust was washed out. This is how they look now. So, now that we're back to the air manifold, let me show you there's no dust in there and that everything's been cleaned. And I want to film one more thing as well. In the previous episode, during the disassembly, people wrote in the comments that it's not dust, that it's soot on the walls that settled there. I want to show exactly where it was pulling dust in from. The air duct, here it is. And right here it just delaminated. Look at this hole. I'll put a flashlight in there so you can see better. There. It's easier for it to take air from here, as much as it can, rather than pulling it through the air filter and overcoming its resistance. That's why there was dust in the air manifold, because of this intake hose, because of this crack. I kept meaning to record it, but kept forgetting. So, accordingly, this hose needs to be replaced. Alright, next I'm installing this bracket. I put in new rubber mounts here, applied some sealant, and now I'm installing it. Next I'm installing the water pump. I didn't rebuild the pump because it was replaced with a new one 6 months ago. So I just washed it, cleaned it, and now I'm installing it. Next I'm installing the oil filter housing. I put in new gaskets, new rubber seals, applied a bit of sealant, and got the washers ready. I'm installing the new filters now. So I immediately connected the fittings, put all the hoses in place, new washers, annealed them. For now, I just roughly put the return line in place like this. I'll see later when I put everything in place, maybe I'll trim it a bit, make it shorter. That's it, now I'm installing the nose. That's it, I installed it like this, tightened it after I connected this hose. It might turn a little to the right or left. Alright, next I'm installing the crossover between the air manifolds. Alright, next I'll be working on the turbos. So the turbos were sent out for bench testing. They checked them on the stand and said everything is fine, meaning they're not leaking oil, which is most important. Well, When I took them apart, you could see there was dry dust, but there was no oil, so that's good. They just cleaned it and blasted it, and that's it. Removed the studs somewhere, and now I'm going to take a look. So I have these kinds of repair kits for the turbo. I'm going to take a look now too. I see there are studs, nuts, gaskets, and so on. I cleaned the manifold a bit here. Now I'm going to blow them out and install the turbos. Let's go. So we can see that on one turbo the studs were unscrewed, but on the other they weren't. Well, I probably won't do that either, although it's not clear how to install it here. Alright, I'll take a look now. I think the nut was right up to this thread, and this thread can just be cut off. Because right now it's useless to touch them, you'll just break them, and then it'll be almost impossible to unscrew those studs. Alright, I'll try now. Check things out, put it together, and see what happens. That's it, I've screwed in the studs. I sorted out which turbo I have and where it's from. I only changed one stud here because the nut fits right up to here and the thread is fine here. I prepared these flanges. I don't know, they were cut off when they were removed, so they'll probably be welded here. Well, I prepared the flange, trimmed it a bit. It was all corroded here. I also got the manifolds ready, cleaned everything up. I chased the threads here too. Studs are still good. What do I need to do next? I need to replace all these seals. These are for the oil drain, and these seals are for the air supply to the manifolds. Alright, I need to clean this first. I'll clean it now. Alright, next I'm installing the exhaust manifolds. I installed the bracket. As I understand it, this is what holds the air conditioner compressor together with the engine. It's mounted on the same mounts. And what's most interesting is that when I was unscrewing it, there were only these two bolts and this one bolt here. And it was short, so I replaced it with a longer one. I don't know, maybe they unscrewed them when they were removing it. But these bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, none of these bolts were there. I don't know. I screwed them in. Found 6 bolts I had, screwed them in. That's it. Next. I immediately installed the mount, a new mount. I installed it right away. I don't tighten it yet because I need to align the studs with the holes in place. I installed the gasket and applied special assembly paste inside the manifold. I replaced this drain gasket, but I'm not tightening it yet. I also set the drain channel in place here, and I'm installing the turbocharger. Next, I'll install the second turbocharger. Alright, I installed the turbocharger, tightened everything fit well here, everything went in nicely. This is what the drain from one turbocharger looks like. Everything fit well here. And this is what the drain from the second turbocharger looks like. Alright, so the turbocharger is in place. I installed this intake manifold. It's cleaned inside as well. So I also installed this pipe for the air intake to the compressor. There was just this kind of elbow with a thread here. I don't know how it ended up here or who put it here. I found an old elbow at home, a simple one without a thread, but the hose still ends up a bit kinked. There should be a 45-degree angle here, or maybe there used to be a pipe here. So I'll just leave it like this. I can't think of any other solution anyway. Tighten these clamps, tighten these bolts that hold this pipe, and the ones that hold the lifting eye the engine gets lifted by. Next. Now I'm installing the oil supply to the turbochargers. So there's one pipe going here and another one goes here. The pipe is fastened first with this kind of bolt, a special interesting bolt like this. So first it works like a bolt holding one pipe in place, and then it acts as a fitting, and the second pipe is screwed on top. It's quite an interesting part. Alright, so now the turbochargers are fully installed. Everything is tightened. The turbochargers themselves are tightened. The drain, the oil, everything, the supply. For now, I put this cut pipe back in place. I have new studs here, screwed on new nuts. I haven't tightened them yet. Just put them on loosely. Now I'm putting on this big pipe, and basically what's left for me. The pump, the dipstick, some small stuff, the starter, the mounts. You could say the engine is assembled. This is how it looks right now. Now I'll also attach one new mount, and basically that's it. For now, I won't tighten it either, so I can adjust it on the spot here, move it around to align with the hole, and then tighten it in place. That's it. My engine is ready. So now, what am I going to do next? Now I'll be sealing, closing the opening, hooking up the fuel line, connecting the starter, the batteries. So I'll be getting it ready to start. Next, there was a question about the cost, so I'll briefly go over it now. About 350,000 was spent on this engine. I don't have the exact breakdown. Well, I'll share the information I know. The most expensive part was the piston group for this engine. The piston assembly cost about 100,000 rubles, give or take, not counting the roughly 130,000 rubles spent on all the other parts. Also, the 350,000 rubles includes a complete pump overhaul. The pump repair cost about 50,000 rubles. Basically, that's not that expensive, right? No, up to 50,000 is of course a large amount, but let's say if you take the fuel pump from a 442 engine with an electronic throttle system, the repair of just one pump there can cost up to 200,000. What other work was done? For example, we sent the cylinder heads for grinding, had the connecting rods machined, so the heads and rods alone cost about 10,000 rubles, maybe more. Then we sent the turbochargers for inspection, plus some repairs. They opened them up, did sandblasting or checked them. That also cost about 10,000 rubles and so on. So that's how it all adds up. And you get this kind of amount plus the engine itself. It would be easier if you just brought it to the shop already removed. This amount of 350,000 includes all these jobs, removal, installation, my work on overhauling the engine, the labor. This also covers the third-party organizations we took it to who worked on the cylinder heads, the pump, the turbochargers, and so on. As for the spare parts, I'll repeat, the most expensive part is the piston assembly, which costs over 100,000 rubles. But all the others are around 130,000 rubles. All the other spare parts for the entire engine, including repairs, compressors, and so on. In the comments, you also told me it's better to buy a used engine than repair this one. Well, in some ways I agree. For that amount you can buy a used engine, but again the question is what kind of engine it will be and what condition it will be in. If you have a supplier who guarantees that this engine will last for you, if you find such a supplier who will sell it to you with a warranty, then why not? Of course it's possible. There are cases people write to me and tell me how they bought used engines. But sometimes it arrives, let's say without a compressor or missing something else, and then they start assembling everything themselves. They consult with me on how to do it. There have been engines that consume oil, and sometimes people had to replace the piston assembly and so on. In any case, a used engine is a pig in a poke. So I have nothing against used engines. Again, it's all about luck. It's a pig in a poke. That's my opinion. Some people get lucky and they'll drive and be happy, never knowing any trouble. But someone else might buy one and regret it 10 times over. It's a tricky, debatable question. One person wrote to me that he bought a used engine at some auction. He bought a used engine from Japan. Also a 442 engine for 350,000. He bought it. This engine has either 8,000 or 18,000 kilometers on it. Yes, that happens. He bought it from a fire truck, from a ladder truck. So it's clear what kind of mileage it has. He just got lucky. If it's an engine like that, then for 350 he can basically call it new. It will keep running and running. But that's why there's no clear answer here. Whether repair, not repair, or buy a used engine. You can repair it, you can buy one, or you could just send your money and end up with neither an engine nor anything else. There have been cases like that too. So it's a complicated question, a tough question, and everyone has to decide for themselves. Okay, now I'm installing the gearbox. I'm putting it in gear.
I don't have the input shaft splines here anymore. I need to insert it now.
Okay, the gearbox is installed. All the bolts are tightened. Now I can take it out of gear. Now I need to push the release bearing into the clutch basket. So, like this, I press the release bearing with a pry bar. And now I need to fasten the pin. Here it is, this pin, and it will act as a stopper. Here it will secure the release bearing for me. Now it will only move with the clutch fingers. That's it, I've fastened it. That's it. Now the release bearing can't come off the clutch fingers anymore. We can see that the release bearing is fixed in place. Now I need to close this small upper inspection cover. Now I also need to install the new mounts. So I'll unpack them now and just put them in loosely. I won't tighten them yet. They'll be tightened later, in place on the vehicle. So now my task is to put it on a wooden pallet, set it up, and that's it. After that, it will be installed on the vehicle. Так, ну мы видим, двигатель уже установлен на автобус.